name's Maria. I'm here to help you talk about all about the CELPIP test tonight. I'm waiting to see who joins us and from which city. I am in Vancouver, British Columbia here. So we've got 4 participants already. Great. I'd love to hear where you are. Why don't you type in the chat which city you are in? I'm really excited to help you this evening. We're going to get to all of your questions too as well. I see that we've got Hallison and Charisse. You can type in the chat, Toronto, great. Barbados, amazing. Oh, I've been to Barbados. I went there on vacation once, many years ago, actually. It was beautiful, totally stunning. I would love to go back. Fantastic. Oh, it's very, very nice. Lovely beaches. Great. Toronto's also very, very nice. I have lots of friends in Toronto. It's a fun city. Welcome, Amir. Excellent. Okay, we'll just wait a couple of people more. Oh, Brazil, lovely. Which part of Brazil? I lived in Brazil for many years when I worked as an English teacher there. I lived in Rio. I love Brazil. It's one of my favorite countries, actually. Thank you for joining tonight. I'm really looking forward to helping all of you because I know that the CELPIP test is a bit of a humdinger. It's a bit tricky. So I'm ready to answer all of your doubts. Let's just wait one more minute to see who joins us. And then whoever doesn't will get to watch the recording because those of you who are on Canadian time and showed up on time will get to watch it fresh from the beginning. All right. Well, I'm so grateful to have you all here. And to those of you who are listening to the recording, I'm very grateful to have you here as well. I'm looking forward to helping you answer all of your doubts about the CELPIP test. So before we start, has anybody here already taken the CELPIP test before? If so, can you put like a little yes in the chat? No, okay, no, you haven't taken it before, okay. Great. Yeah, it's not everybody has taken it, and that's okay. Okay, well, let's get started right away then. I'm going to share my screen. So when I'm sharing my screen, I won't be looking at the chat. So just to let you know, if you do have any questions, you can go ahead and type those questions in the chat box. At the end of my slides, where I'm going to talk all about the CELPIP, I will go back into those questions and we'll answer them at the end, okay? So let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen here. And let's go. So let's talk about how to pass your CELPIP exam. So for those of you who don't know me, maybe you came across me on Instagram or through an immigration consultant. My name is Maria. I'm a Canadian exam specialist. I have been teaching for over a decade, so I've got a lot of teaching experience, and I'm specialized in exam prep. So I teach IELTS prep and CELPIP prep. So I have been teaching specifically CELPIP prep for quite a number of years now. I'm Cambridge certified and certified by Paragon testing. So you can trust that what you're going to learn with me today is quite exclusive, and I'm going to be very honest and share what I know with you because I want you to get the results you need as fast as you can. I'm also the founder and head teacher of English for Canada. It's an online English school that I'll tell you about in just a moment. And as an interesting tidbit, I'm also fluent in Spanish and Portuguese. I was born and raised here in Canada, in Vancouver, but my parents are immigrants from Chile, so I speak Spanish fluently. And I also lived in Brazil for a number of years working as an English teacher, so that's where I learned Portuguese. I have a lot of respect for language learners. I know how challenging it can be to learn a language as an adult, but I also know how much fun it is. So let's get started. English for Canada, for those of you who don't know us, we are an English school. I started the school in 2014, and we are a school that teaches 100% Canadian English. Now, why is that important for the CELPIP exam? The CELPIP exam is a Canadian English test. And I've noticed a lot of people prepare for their test by studying in their first language, like in Spanish or Portuguese or Japanese, and so on and so forth. And that's not the most effective approach, because if you are going to be taking a test that's testing your ability to speak in English, and you're going to be listening to a lot of Canadian accents, you really want to immerse yourself in the language. We teach 100% online, and all of the teachers on our team are certified Canadian exam experts. Since starting the school, we have helped over 5,000 students prepare for their IELTS or CELPIP exams. So if you'd like to check us out, go to our website, englishforcanada.com. We've got a really busy Instagram page, so you can go to our Instagram page or our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well. So we've got lots of tips there. Since you enrolled for this webinar, I'm going to be sending you some free CELPIP tips over the next few days as well, so stay tuned. Now, what is the CELPIP exam? If you haven't taken it before, you might be curious. You probably never heard of it before. Maybe your immigration consultant told you suddenly you need to take this test. It's a test, an English proficiency exam that's used for immigration and citizenship processes. Now, why does the government want to test your English? They want to see your ability to speak in English in real life. Now, the CELPIP test is not an academic test. You cannot use your CELPIP exam to apply for a university or a college here in Canada. You will only use this test certificate for either your immigration application for like express entry or your provincial nomination if you need it, or a citizenship application when you have been here for a while. The way the CELPIP test is rated is a little bit different than another test like the IELTS. The band scores are between 0 and 12, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And it's not just an English test. A lot of people assume that you can just speak English and go and take the test. And unfortunately, you do have to learn some strategies, some test strategies, which we're going to talk about today as well. What is the CLB? Now, when you started your immigration process, you probably didn't expect to have to learn so many terms, right? These letters like IELTS and CELPIP and CLB. But what is the CLB? And why is it so important for you to understand what the CLB means? Now, I really wanted to break this down for you to make it simple, because a lot of people don't understand what the CLB is. So I want to explain this to you so that it's really easy for you. So let's compare the CLB to your first language. Now, the CLB is rated between 0 and 12, just like the CELPIP test. So let's compare this to your first language. In your first language, technically, your CLB would be 12. You are at the top of the rating, okay? Somebody who is just starting to learn your first language, let's say if you speak Spanish, and somebody's just starting to learn the very first words in Spanish, like colors or hi, how are you in Spanish, they would be considered at an elementary level at band 3 or below on the CELPIP, equivalent to CLB 3 and below. Now, as they move up the scale, they would get into the pre-intermediate level. This would be considered a CLB 4 or 5. As we go higher up in the scale, we get into a more common proficiency level. Intermediate level, B1 proficiency, is a very, very common proficiency level. And I would say this is where most students or test takers are. This is where most people actually stay at as a plateau for many years. And that's totally okay, because it's not wrong to be at B1. It's actually a very good level. You can communicate effectively at work. You can make friends. It's not wrong to be at B1. A lot of people get embarrassed or anything. There's nothing wrong with being B1. It's actually a great achievement. Now, when we compare CLBs, B1 is band 5 to 7. Now, the thing is, when we want to immigrate, though, we probably have to get a little bit higher than B1 intermediate, depending on your profile. Some of you can immigrate with a band CLB 5, CLB 6. It really depends on your immigration profile. That you have to speak with an immigration consultant, okay? But let's say that you do need to get a higher band score, like a CLB 9, which is what many people tend to need, then we would like you to get into this upper intermediate range. Now, within the upper intermediate range, we do have some degrees. We have upper intermediate B2, and then we have B2 plus. I would like to make a little disclaimer here that the recent studies by Language Canada say that the CLB 9 is technically upper intermediate, but it's B2 plus. So it's somewhat in between upper intermediate and C1 advanced. So if your goal is to achieve a CLB 9, I want to let you know that your goal should be to achieve between B2 and C1. Keep that as like your objective. B2 to C1 should be your goal. But ultimately, a CLB 9, according to the recent research by Language Canada, is upper intermediate, okay? Then we get into the higher band scores, which probably most people don't need for their immigration, which is C1 advanced. And then native speaker level, which would be what you are in your first language, which is C2 proficiency, band 12. Now, that is the Canadian language benchmark. I know it seems really confusing. If you want to do a test to see what CLB you are at the end of this, you can go to my Instagram page, and I actually have a really simple quiz you can take on our Instagram page, a 3-step quiz for you to find out which CLB that you are at, okay? Don't worry, I've broken it down so it's easy for you. So let's talk about calculating your CLB on the CELPIP test though. This is where it can get a little bit tricky. On the CELPIP test, the lowest band score you get will be your CLB. A lot of people think that it's the overall, like on the IELTS, but it's not. On the CELPIP test, let's say you got a CLB 10 on the listening, a CLB 11 on the reading, a CLB 8 on the writing, and a CLB 7 on the speaking. Instead of it being an average, your CLB 7 will be the lowest band score of the 4. Okay? Now, when you are inputting these results into your Express Entry profile, at the end of the day, you're going to be given a points according to each number. So the CLB doesn't really matter, but the higher you score, the better, because you're going to get more points if you score higher on the exam. Ultimately, you will likely want to get a CLB 9, depending on your immigration profile again, okay? So if you have any questions, again, please leave your questions in the chat box because I'm not looking at that right now as I'm in the slides, and I'll get to them right away. Now let's get into some common exam myths that might be holding you back. Now, I wanted to teach that today because I have seen hundreds and thousands of students and test takers contact me saying that they have taken the CELPIP exam many times and they don't know why they keep getting stuck at like a CLB 7 or 8. And then I look at their responses or I hear their speaking responses and I quickly realize that they're all doing the same thing. This is because most people study by themselves and you end up actually learning some bad habits by studying online, because a lot of the online content has not been developed by people who are certified by CELPIP or people who have experience working as examiners for numerous tests. So let's talk about myth number 1. Memorizing advanced words when you don't know what they really mean. Now let's talk about what that actually means. Accuracy is more important than just memorizing fancy words, because I see a lot of candidates or students who try to really add fancy words or scientific words, really advanced vocabulary, but they add so many words or words that don't make sense in the context just to make the writing seem advanced. What happens is it makes the writing confusing for the reader, and in many times the words are used inaccurately, meaning they are wrong. Accuracy is more important. It's better to use topic-specific vocabulary. Your examiner will be more happy if they see topic-specific vocabulary. So what does that mean? Let's pretend that, or let's assume that your question is about cooking. Remember, the topics on the CELPIP are very simple. They're everyday life topics. Let's assume it's about nutrition or cooking. What vocabulary do you know about food and nutrition and cooking that you can show that can demonstrate a range, so you're not repeating yourself, without having to use super advanced, fancy vocabulary that you might use incorrectly? Because when you try to use really advanced vocabulary that you don't have good control of, and you use it incorrectly, you are actually going to lower your band score. It's like shooting yourself in the foot, really. Accuracy is more important than accuracy ultimately is more important, is what I'm trying to say here. Also, having an appropriate word choice is really important. So let me show you an example. Here is an example of a sample from a response that I actually saw once. Remember, the CELPIP test is testing your ability to use your English in real life contexts. Now, here are two words in English that exist. We have progenitor and parents. They are synonyms, but which one sounds more natural in real life? As a concerned parent, I do not believe my daughter is getting the support she needs in her science lessons. Compared to, as a concerned progenitor, I do not believe my daughter is getting the support she needs in her science lessons. Even though progenitor technically is a word, it's not wrong, it's just awkward. Like, nobody would speak like that in real life. It's better to perhaps show your vocabulary range by showing other vocabulary, other words that you know about this topic, than trying to show off with a word that's awkward. It's an awkward word choice. And also know that sometimes some words just don't have a synonym that would make sense in the context, and that's okay too. Let's take a look at another example. Sometimes students try to use fancy words and they just get it wrong. And this is what I'm talking about, accuracy. For example, if you want to say, the truth is, I disagree with the latest changes to our workplace environment because, but instead you say the antithesis, which doesn't mean the same thing. I mean, it kind of looks the same because it's something about truth, maybe in the same world, same realm of the word truth, but it's not the same meaning. So ultimately, it changed the meaning of the sentence and it's wrong. So you have to aim for accuracy. At the end of the day, my rule for this myth is increasing your range of vocabulary is important, but using advanced vocabulary just for the sake of it can lead to tons of mistakes. So make sure you understand the words you are using. I encourage you to definitely keep studying and to increase your range, okay? I'm not saying don't study or use advanced vocabulary, but make sure you have good control of the words you are using. Let's move on to myth number 2. And this is a big one, big one. Memorizing answers. This is huge, especially on the CELPIP test. Memorized answers can actually flag your exam and be considered as cheating. A lot of people don't know this. And why do you think an examiner can't use memorized expressions as part of your assessment? Right? The examiner is testing your English. They want to hear your English, not something that you found on YouTube or on Google, right? It has to be authentic and it has to be from you. So if they can tell that you have memorized a sentence or a phrase, and it's pretty obvious when it is, they will flag it as cheating and your test could be disqualified. So really do not memorize answers. Now you might be asking me, well, how can they know if I have memorized the answers? It's pretty obvious because a lot of the test prep sites out there use the same thing, like this. Maybe if you have been studying online, you have already seen something like this. Let's take a look at an example here. I'm going to give you a moment to read this one. This one on the left here is very, very common. Many students and test takers have used this in writing task 2. It's a very common memorized expression. And what's wrong with this one? It says both options have advantages. But if I had to choose one, I would choose option B. There is really no context here. Like, we have no idea what topic we're talking about. It doesn't relate to the question. Literally, you could copy and paste this sentence and add it to any question that you get on the exam. So you could technically memorize this. So it stands out quite a lot. Instead of using something memorized, use something specific to the question, like this. While many parents might choose option A, I much prefer the healthier school lunches for our children, as my child's nutrition is very important to me. This one is very specific to the context of your question. Let's take a look at another one. A lot of times, students and test takers want to provide examples, which is great, but they end up looking fake. For example, students might provide research or statistics, and they memorize them. So they look like this. For example, researchers at Harvard University found out that a 1999 study that 50% of people who exercise lose weight. This looks really fake. I mean, this doesn't seem natural. Remember, the examiners want to see your ability to use your English in everyday life. You want to pretend that you are actually in the question, so to speak. Picture yourself in the context. So if you get a question about, say, nutrition, who can you imagine, or who do you know in your personal life that you can think of? What example can you think of from your real life that you can give as an example, as opposed to something cookie cutter or memorized that you found online? Look how much more natural this one looks. For example, I lost 30 pounds last year when I decided to take on a healthier lifestyle by eating right and exercising on a daily basis. Nobody can copy this. This looks like somebody's specific English, not something off of the internet. So the rule is, memorized answers are obvious to spot, and an examiner will flag it, and they can consider it cheating, and your test can be disqualified. So do not do that. Cool? Awesome. Let's talk about myth number 3. Being fluent in English is enough. A lot of people assume, even native speakers, when they have to take the test, that, oh, I speak English, I can just go take the test. It's not really enough, because the CELPIP test raters have very complex assessment criteria, meaning they have a very specific way that they are going to determine your band scores for the speaking test and the writing test. And it's not just about your grammar, your vocabulary, or your pronunciation. So you want to prepare for your test according to how a CELPIP test rater will be assessing you. It's very, very important that you do that. So here are some things that an examiner is looking for that aren't just about your English. Your tone of voice. For example, in your speaking test, if you have to speak to your friend, are you going to sound very serious, or are you going to sound friendly? How formal or informal do you sound when you speak, and do you write? And how appropriate is your tone of voice? The quality of your ideas. How good are your ideas? Again, did you memorize ideas? Did you provide relevant ideas? Did they like your ideas? That's another issue. The examiner might think your ideas are just not really that strong. The number of ideas. How many ideas did you provide in your response? And in my course, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, I do coach on exactly a structure as to how many ideas you should provide and the order in which you should do so. How to structure and organize your responses so that it's clear for your examiner to follow. This is a big one, because if your ideas are all over the place, I promise you that the examiner automatically cannot follow your ideas. It's going to lower your band score. How complete and well developed your arguments are. This is a big one as well. You always want to provide developed arguments. So as you can see, these components don't really have much to do with your grammar or your range of vocabulary or your pronunciation. But why is that actually a good thing? Because a lot of people who are struggling to, or feel like they're struggling with their English, you can actually compensate any of those mistakes that you might be making by studying for your test the right way. If you feel insecure about your pronunciation, or you feel insecure about maybe a common grammar mistake you might be making, you can improve your band score by focusing on these other skill sets that the examiners are looking for. So that's why it's so important that you prepare for the CELPIP test according to what an examiner is looking for. Now let's talk about another common issue that I really think is important for every test taker to think about when they're preparing for their test. And this is test anxiety, because I think that anxiety is something that we have to all talk about openly. There should be no stigma about this. I have a lot of empathy for anybody who struggles with test anxiety. And a lot of my students have shared their struggles with me, and I'm here to support anybody and everybody who has struggled with test anxiety. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because if you do not consider this as part of your exam prep, it will eventually be part of it, because it can happen, especially if you have not given yourself enough time to prepare. So here are some tricks that my students and I have worked on together. Now, a lot of our students have gotten that CLB 9, and a lot of it has been helping them overcome that test anxiety. So I wanted to share some secrets that I've worked on with my students to help them overcome that insecurity and that test anxiety. Some of the limiting beliefs that we can talk about when you're learning a new language is that fear of making a mistake. Now, we all have fear of making mistakes. I have it, everybody has it. But when we're learning a language, we can make mistakes. Making mistakes is the best way to learn. And I'm talking about everyday life. When you're learning a language, actually making mistakes is the best way to learn, because when you make a mistake, you're given the opportunity to get corrected, maybe by a friend or a teacher. And if you feel embarrassed in the moment, that's even better, because then you'll remember not to make that same mistake. I can share tons of embarrassing moments when I was learning Portuguese. And honestly, I'll never forget those moments where I just don't make those same mistakes anymore. Learning a language is a journey, it's a process. And part of that process is making mistakes. So if you start the journey with the belief that you can't make a mistake, you're not going to go up that scale of proficiency like we talked about. So how can we turn this around? Instead of telling yourself you can't make a mistake, accept the fact that making mistakes is part of learning a language. And if you do make a mistake and you feel embarrassed, that's okay. It's even better. Because if you feel embarrassed, you're going to remember not to make that same mistake in the future. Trust me, it'll be ingrained in your memory. It's neurological. Another limiting belief that we've talked about in my students, a lot of students say, I've never been able to learn English. Why do people believe that? I mean, you have maybe taken a couple of courses in the past, but learning English has never been more dynamic and fun than it is now. We have the internet, we have native speaking teachers online, we have TV series, we have podcasts, we've got audiobooks, we've got tons of books that you can read. There are tons of ways that you can learn English. It's not like it used to be in the past where you had a boring old grammar book. You can always choose to learn in a different way. You can always choose to make English fun again. Don't get stuck in that old belief that you've never been able to learn. And finally, about your test. A lot of students say that if they don't pass their exam, they're a failure. This is not true. This is not true. These tests are not easy, I know that. But each time you take the test, you're closer to your goal. So I wanted to reframe this. If you have had to take your CELPIP test more than once, instead of treating each time that you've taken the test like a failure, which it's not, what if you treat or think of each time you have taken your test like one step closer to your final goal? Because every time you go take your test, you are more confident with the test experience. You're more confident with the environment, the test environment. You've learned a little bit more about what you can improve on for your next test. So think of each test as a stepping stone and not a failure. Because if you tell yourself that you failed the last test, what kind of energy are you going to take to your following test? How are you going to pass the next test if you tell yourself you're a failure from the previous one, right? We really have to be careful what we tell ourselves about the previous test. So really be careful with that language there. Those are some of the limiting beliefs our students have told us, and we always want to remind them that passing their English proficiency test is a process. If you have to take it more than once, that's okay. You're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you, okay? Now, common questions we do get are, how long should you prepare for your exam? Now, the exam prep duration will depend on your current proficiency versus your objective. Because let's say, for example, you are at a beginning, or you're a beginner, or you're at that pre-intermediate stage, but you need to get to CLB 9. That's obviously going to take a lot longer than, say, somebody at upper intermediate. But most of you on this call are probably at intermediate level range or upper intermediate. If you are at an intermediate level and you need to get to, say, a CLB 9, I would say to study between 3 to 6 months calmly. If you are at upper intermediate, remember, upper intermediate is basically already CLB 9. I would say 2 to 3 months to really understand the exam prep strategies. Now, Cambridge University says that you should study 200 hours to increase a proficiency level. But I think that we can speed that up nowadays if we understand how to study for a test properly, if we learn the test prep strategies and we fully immerse ourselves in the language. There are a lot of variables that come into learning a language. And the more time you spend speaking the language and in contact with the language, the faster you're going to learn. So this question that we get all the time, it really does depend on you. How much time can you study? Can you study every day? How much time are you thinking in English or spending time? Is your phone in English? How much time are you working in English? Or do you spend most of your time still communicating in your first language? Really make that effort to start switching your life to English immersion, and you'll notice a difference. Another reason why I encourage studying over the course of about at least 2 to 3 months is so that you can prepare calmly and properly. Remember, this test has quite a lot to it. The CELPIP test has a listening component, a reading component, a speaking component, and a writing component. And the CELPIP examiners are going to be testing you specifically on the speaking and the writing skills. It's quite a lot to cover. So you want to study calmly. If you leave your test to the last minute and you have to study everything at once in 2 weeks, that's definitely going to cause some stress. And like we talked about, test anxiety, and that can lower your results. Now, the last thing I would want is for somebody to go to their test stressed out, especially on the speaking test, because you've got that timer ticking in front of you. So that's why I always encourage our students to study calmly and properly. And speaking of properly, I want to talk to you about an amazing course that I have put together for you to help you prepare for your CELPIP test as quickly as possible. Because I've helped so many students, and after all these years, my students have told me that they needed a quick and simple way to prepare for their test, specifically for the speaking and writing tests. So I've created an amazing course called the CELPIP Speaking and Writing Solution to prepare you for your exam as quickly and easily as possible. You're going to find out how to give amazing responses for both the speaking and writing tests by learning my simple steps that I've developed over a decade of teaching. You're going to be guided with my step-by-step strategies and toolkits for all 8 speaking tasks and writing task 1 and writing task 2. I'm going to break it down step by step the whole way. It's going to be super simple for you to follow. And those of you who just met me today, you can trust me, you can count on me. I'm a CELPIP pro. I've coached over 5,000 students prepare for their exams. And you're gonna find out exactly how a CELPIP examiner thinks in this course so you can get the band scores you need. Now, another reason why my course is different is that you're going to immerse yourself in Canadian English. You're going to study from a true Canadian accent. I was born and raised here in Vancouver, Canada. So all of the course content that I created, including all of the audios, you're going to get 54 sample responses for the speaking test, MP3s that I recorded, so that you can hear what a high quality speaking response should sound like. You're going to hear sample audios from a Canadian accent. Immersing yourself in Canadian English is the best way to notice real results. And if you're studying in your first language or watching webinars or taking courses or studying in your first language, it's not the most effective way to study, honestly. You have to immerse yourself in the language. And since the CELPIP exam is a Canadian English test, what better way to study than with a Canadian English teacher? Finally, you're also going to be studying from examiner level sample answers. All of the sample responses you're going to get for this test for the writing task 1 and writing task 2, you're going to have over 25 sample responses, and all of the transcripts for the speaking test. It's a lot, trust me, guys. I wrote all of them carefully according to the CELPIP performance standards. So I know that they have been vetted so that a CELPIP examiner would give them thumbs up for you to get that CLB 9. You wouldn't want to study off of a test taker's sample responses, which is what, for example, the CELPIP website offers or many other test prep programs offer. You want to make sure you're studying from examiner level sample answers so that you can improve your grammar, learn new vocabulary, and you don't consolidate any bad habits. I would love to show you a little bit about what my course looks like on the inside. Here's an inside scoop. I had this course professionally recorded because I care about it so much. I wanted you to have the most high level learning experience. So I'm going to show you a little clip of what this course looks like on the inside. All right, I'm super excited to show you all about what's included now. So in this course, you're going to get 10 fun modules, including self-study videos with an authentic Canadian accent, 25 sample responses for both writing tasks 1 and 2 that will show you exactly how CELPIP test raters think. You're going to learn how to write your writing task 2 response in 5 easy steps. This is a huge one. I really broke it down for you so that you know how to start and finish your writing task 2 response in 5 easy steps. You're going to get 5 sample questions and responses for all 8 speaking tasks. My students absolutely love this one. The students who took this course last year said they would listen to the sample responses on the train and they would just practice hearing the responses. And that way, when they got to the test, the timer wasn't that scary because they already knew how long they should be. You're going to get those sample audios and transcripts. You're even going to get to read the responses as well, so you can see exactly what I was saying. And you're also going to get my toolkits. I love these toolkits because I explain step by step how to format each speaking task response, my top tips for each speaking task, because there are 8 speaking tasks. I give you my top tips and strategies and helpful expressions that you can use so that you don't get stuck. You know that feeling where you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. You're not going to have that after taking this course. You're going to learn over 300 linking words and transitional words and expressions so that you can connect your ideas inside and out. And you're going to discover a top secret grammar hack that's guaranteed to boost your band score. Trust me, examiners are keeping an eye out to see if you're making this mistake and if you are doing this. So I teach this in the class so that you do not do this. You're also going to get 10 quizzes throughout the course to test your knowledge. Now, last year when I launched this course, I had students from all around the world take it, from Brazil to Spain to China to Dubai. I was so excited to help students. And these are just some of the 5-star reviews that I got. It was so rewarding to see our students get those band scores that they needed and to ultimately get their permanent residencies here in Canada. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to help them. And I hope that I can help you as well. Trust me, I am somebody who really loves what I do, and I'm here to support you. So if you have any questions along the way, I'll be there for you. And here are just a couple of more of my students who have studied with me and with English for Canada as well. All right. Well, I'm going to get to your Q&A in just one second, but I do want to show you just how to enroll in this course if you want to get started right away, because once you get enrolled, you have immediate access to this course. Now, this course, I wanted to create a promo for this course because I know that a lot of you need to take your CELPIP test soon to get your PR. Now, it is a premium course, so the regular price was $259, but this launch promo is an amazing price of $229. Now, with this course, you're going to be able to learn exactly how to write amazing responses according to a CELPIP examiner standards for writing test 1 and 2. And you're going to feel totally prepared to speak confidently for all 8 speaking tasks. I promise you that at the end of this course, you're going to know everything you need to know for the CELPIP speaking and writing tests. This discount is valid until the end of March. So I'm going to add the link to the course in the chat box, and let's head into your question and answers. All right, let's get into your questions. Just one moment. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And that's the course link right there. Cool. So let's get into your questions here. Does anybody have any questions? I'm ready to answer all of your questions that you might have about the CELPIP test. Amir, Rohit, Shadis, Tatiana, does anybody have any questions? That I'm totally here live to answer any questions you might have about the CELPIP test. Don't be shy, I'm here to help. Oh, someone says you can't see the link. Oh, let me try again. Thank you for letting me know. I accidentally shared it to the panelists. There we go, to everyone. It says here, what is the average amount of time students take the test before getting their band? Okay, Charisse, can you clarify perhaps which band score you are referring to? Now, let's say, for example, again, this will depend on their objective that they need and the current proficiency level they are at. Let's say, for example, somebody needs a CELB 9, which is almost at advanced proficiency, but they are at a beginner level. That could take them 1.5 years in general studying English. But if somebody is at like upper intermediate and they need a CELB 9, upper intermediate is already very close to CELB 9, right? In that case, they probably just need to learn how to take the CELPIP test. And they might not understand how a CELPIP examiner is examining them. In that case, taking the course, you can take this course intensively over the course of 2 weeks if you want and go take the test. But if you want to study calmly over the course of 2 or 3 months, you can do so. You can take this course as slowly or as quickly as you wish. But if you are already at like an upper intermediate level, like B2 proficiency, and you need to get to a CELB 9, and you probably just need to learn how a CELPIP examiner is going to be testing you for the speaking and writing sections. An average amount of time, it's a bit tough to say an exact average, but most students I encourage to study for about 3 months to calmly study, because if you study it for like a week, it's a bit intensive. Now, I have had students, though, I should say, I have had students who enrolled in my course and took the course in 2 weeks and got the band scores they needed. It's really hard for me to say one number because, like I said, I had a student enroll and then in 2 weeks later, they took the test and they got the band score because all they needed to do was to learn those tricks, those secrets that the examiners don't share publicly, you know? Yes, Tatiana, I can share information about the 12 class program as well. I also have a premium version of the course, which is includes all four. Yep, let me add that to the chat box as well. I also have the premium version, which includes all 4 sections, and it includes some tutoring sessions with our team as well. So that one's a different price point. So I included that link as well. Intermediate, Cherise says intermediate or above. Okay, so intermediate or above, and I'm assuming, Cherise, you want to get a CLB 9? Can you please clarify if you want a CLB 9? Yes, okay. So if you are at like B1 intermediate and you need to get a CLB 9, I would say 3 months is a good amount of, you recently appeared in IELTS. Okay, so that's another question. So I'll get to you in a second, Amir. Let me just finish Charise's question first. So if you are currently at like a B1 intermediate and you need to get that CLB 9, I would say studying for the course of maybe 3 months would be a good amount of time. Now, it would be good for us to take a look at your writing, but I really think that 3 months would be a good amount of time because you're going to be going from intermediate to upper intermediate. It could even be faster. Remember, the CLB 9 is B1 plus, so it's at the higher end of the proficiency scale for upper intermediate. But if you're in that B1 scale, that B1 intermediate, and I'm assuming that's what you've said, right? Intermediate, you might not be because the way you're typing, it's quite proficient. You might not be, you might be actually higher, Cherise. Then I would say 2 to 3 months, depending on how much time you can study as well, right? It really depends on your availability. But 3 months, I think, would be a good range of time. Like I said, Cambridge University says it takes 200 hours to improve a proficiency level. But like with my experience with our students, they usually can do it a little bit faster if they get really specific on what they have to improve on, you know? Amir, Cherise, please let me know if I've answered your question. Amir says, I recently appeared in the IELTS and you got listening 6, speaking 6.5, fantastic, reading 5, and writing 6. What would you think how long it would take to get a CLB 9 in the CELPIP? Okay, that's actually a really good question. Now, the thing here was that the reading test was a bit lower on your IELTS reading, right? I would encourage you to try a couple of sample tests on the Paragon site, the free ones, you know, they've got some free tests to see how you feel about the format. Now, on my website, for those of you who are here, I have a fantastic blog post about the differences between the IELTS and CELPIP, because a lot of people ask me which test is easier. And it's not necessarily that one test is easier, but that the formats are very different. The tests are very, very different from each other, especially on the speaking test. A lot of people assume that they can switch from one test to the other and get a CLB 9 on the CELPIP, but then they go to the CELPIP test and they find that the speaking test is a lot different. So I'm very honest and transparent. Like, I'm not here to just convince people into anything. I always want you to make the best decision for you. Now, if you need to switch to a CLB 9 on the CELPIP, at this point, having gotten a writing band 6 and a 6.5, you are already at basically upper intermediate level. So you're not too far away, but you would have to identify what's going on with the reading there to see why you got that band 5, okay? I would encourage studying for at least 2 to 3 months and identifying what skills, reading skills you would need to improve on there. Also see the listening as well, because you got a 6 on the listening. The speaking test you did very well on though. You got a 6.5, so congratulations on that. Okay, now the CLB 9 on both tests is the same proficiency level, whether you take the IELTS or the CELPIP, the proficiency level is the same. What the difference is on the IELTS and CELPIP is the format of the test. So if you switch from one test to the other, in terms of difficulty, they're both going to be just as hard. It's in terms of the English, but the formats are very different. So I really want you to try a couple of tests and see if you like the CELPIP first. And of course, if you like it, I'd be more than happy to help coach you for the CELPIP, whether it's through my course, or if you prefer to stick with the IELTS, my school also offers IELTS prep as well. Tatiana says, I would have to apply for the PNP in July. Do you think I have enough time to prepare for my exam? Oh, yes. If we're in February now, that's definitely a good time to start studying. We're almost in March now, really. March, April, May, June. So we'd have four months and 5 months-ish. I'm assuming you'd be applying at the beginning of July. I think that you would have a good enough time to start studying. Start studying soon, though, because if you leave, Tatiana, if you leave your test prep to the very last minute, like let's say you leave it to May, then it's going to be too last minute. So start studying sooner rather than later. So you can start doing some essays in your free time, recording yourself for the speaking test, and study calmly, like maybe 10 minutes a day, or set aside 30 minutes every other day. So it's not something that's stressful, you know? Okay, Amir, about the format of the CELPIP speaking test, head to my website. I have a whole blog post that breaks down the difference. Honestly, let me just add the link. Let me just add the link for you right now. I'm just going to my link right now. Just give me 1 second, and I'm going to share this link for you. If you go to this link right now, Amir, and you click on this, I have this blog post there for you, and it breaks down the format between the IELTS and the CELPIP, section by section. So you're going to have a breakdown in format between the IELTS writing and the CELPIP writing, the reading and the reading, like everything. It's very detailed. I wrote this because I had so many students ask me this exact same question. I know how frustrating it is to have to make that decision, like which test should I take? And I need a CELB 9. At the end of the day, a CELB 9 is B2 plus advanced proficiency. If you are at an intermediate, upper intermediate level, like most of you are, I always encourage setting aside 3 months. That's what I always tell people. 3 months, it could be faster, but 3 months as a minimum, just so that you don't have to cram. And if you don't know what cramming means when you leave everything to the last minute and you only have 1 month, that is the worst, because then you're stressed and you might not have time to cover everything. You really want to make sure that you have enough time to study all 4 skills calmly, especially since we know these tests are expensive. I understand that, like, it can happen that you have to take the test more than once, but with our students, my goal is that you take the test the next time and you pass. I don't want you to take the test 5 times. So instead, I prefer you, if you invest 3 months to study calmly, properly, with our content, ask us questions, contact our team if you've got questions as you go through the material, and then take your test. That's, I think, the best way to approach your test prep, as opposed to studying on YouTube and going on Google and finding all these tips that are just going to maybe lower your band score. Does anybody have any other questions about the CELPIP, or any questions about the content that we covered, those myths that we talked about, or any questions about the test itself, anything? I'm here to help. Anything about the CELPIP, anything about a specific test section, anything CELPIP related, I'm here to help. Oh, the course that I'm offering right now is on sale. The regular price is $259, and the sale price is $229 Canadian, not American. $229 Canadian. That's actually important that I state that. So a lot of people think it's US. No, it's Canadian, and that includes 10 amazing modules. You're going to feel totally prepared for the speaking and writing. Now that's for the CELPIP speaking and writing solution. I also have a premium course that includes all 4 sections. The prices are all available on our website as well. And you can always contact my team if you have any further questions about any of this information about what's included in the courses. But let me just add the link here. Honestly, when I designed this course, my goal was that my students who enrolled could get the band scores they needed without having to spend a lot of time figuring out what the examiners were thinking. That's why I broke down all of the common questions that I had, and I broke down how the examiners think and assess you into simple steps. It's a step-by-step course that if you follow the 10 modules, by the end of it, you're going to understand how to provide amazing responses for the CELPIP speaking test and the writing test. That was my goal from the beginning to the end, and I created exclusive questions for the speaking and the writing so that by the end of it, you feel totally prepared to take your test. You can hear MP4s with sample responses. You've got transcripts, tons of sample responses for the speaking and the writing, so that you have model answers. You go, oh, okay, that's how it's supposed to be. And the video classes explain step by step what I'm doing. So this is what you're supposed to do here and here and here. It's literally a recipe for your CELPIP test. My students have gotten, lots of them have gotten CLB 9s. I can show you, like, let me add my reviews here. I'm gonna add my Google reviews from our experience. Just a second here. If you go to the website, like the link I just posted there, you can see reviews on that same link right there. You can see the reviews from my course on that link right there that I just added. You can see the reviews from my course. And also, here are my reviews on Google from my previous students. Some students, where the results they're coming from, some were coming from like a CLB 7 and they would go to CLB 9. Some were CLB 8 to CLB 9. Usually they can take the course in very quickly and go from a CLB 7 to CLB 9, CLB 8 to CLB 9. For somebody who's like a beginner, I don't encourage this course because, and I say that on my website, because this course is advanced. It's not for somebody who's at a beginner level. If you're a beginner, I do not encourage this course. I encourage this course for somebody who is at intermediate level, B1 intermediate and above. So if somebody is at like a CLB 6, 7, 8, then this course, or even CLB 5, 6, 7, 8, then they will definitely benefit from this course. So definitely, I know that this content will help anybody who's at that range. And the link there that I added will take you to our Google page. So you can see reviews from my previous students. And if you actually head to the link, that the course page, you can see reviews specifically at the bottom from previous students who specifically took the CELPIP course as well, if you're curious to see that. If you do have any specific questions about the course though, or if, for example, you want me to take a look at one of your writing samples to give you any, to give you a better idea, like how long it would take for you to prepare, you can always email me directly. I'm gonna put my email here. That's my email. You can always email me as well. I really take my students' success seriously. So when I launch a course, which is not very often, I really, really care. I'm not somebody who just launches a course all the time and expects thousands of students. No, I prefer to have less students that I actually care and check in with and make sure that they get the results that they need. I want to make sure that everybody's happy and satisfied. And I'm very grateful that all of you spent the time with me this evening. Thank you, AC, for the webinar. It was super useful and interesting. Can you please give some tips for the writing? Yes, let me just take a sip of water because my throat is very dry. Tips for the writing. A simple tip that I can give you is that you should keep your writing organized. On the CELPIP test, more so than on the IELTS, it's not that you have to have an essay on writing task 2, okay? You don't have to have an essay because they're not asking you for an essay in writing task 2, okay? But you should still have some sort of structure or an organization and some sort of paragraphing. If you just write like a big block of text, it's really hard for the examiner to follow your train of thought. It's not, they don't expect an essay like on the IELTS, but they still expect some sort of sense of organization and structure. So I really encourage you to spend some time planning your response before you start writing. Now in the course, I teach a 5-step strategy on how to plan your response so that you can meet the examiner's requirements. But what I do encourage you is to have paragraphs. Again, it doesn't have to be an academic essay, but clear paragraphs so that your ideas are organized. So the examiner can go, oh, okay, they're talking about this in this paragraph and this in this paragraph. That is something so simple that will make a huge difference in your performance. Trust me, trust me. Another thing that I really encourage for your writing is to use topic-specific vocabulary like we just talked about in the webinar. A lot of students really, they repeat the same words over and over again. And repetition is not good. If you're repeating the same word over and over again, it shows that you have a lack of range. What you want to do is show a range of vocabulary by demonstrating what vocabulary you know about that topic. So let's say you got a topic about computers or technology. What do you know about technology? Like you can say gadgets or smartphone or laptop. Like what do you know about technology that you can show the examiner without repeating the same word over and over and over again? Those are some very, very helpful tips. Within the course, I also talk a lot about linking words because I think a lot of students overuse linking words. If you go to my Instagram page, I talk about this a lot too. If you use too many linking words, like a lot, like however, furthermore, like too many of them, it actually disrupts the flow of what you're saying. And this is actually a really helpful CELPIP writing tip or writing tip in general. A lot of people they put too many linking words and it actually makes the writing very difficult to follow. So it's important to use linking words, but there are other ways to create flow and connection and cohesion in your writing that I teach in the course as well. Linking words should be used sparingly. They should be used in a way that makes your writing natural, but not in a way that you're forcing them in, you know what I mean? And when you look at your writing, I mean, honestly, I know that not all of you here might become one of my students, and that's okay, because you're here in my webinar, and as a result, I want to help you. So if I can give you some tips, even if you don't study with me in class, this is a class, you know, like I want to help you. This is a huge tip. The linking words, I've seen this so many times as well. Don't use too many of them, like use them, but don't force them in, because I see them everywhere, like here and there and here and there. And just like, be careful, like use them in a way that's natural. Like in your first language, would you use a linking word at the beginning of every single sentence? Probably not, right? Like the person reading it's going to be like, oh God, this is so uncomfortable. It should be natural. So when you're reading the text in English, really look at it and go, am I using too many linking words? Think about that. That's a really good tip, okay? I hope that those tips helped you, okay? Linking words, topic-specific vocabulary, and structure and organization, okay? So I think those are some really good tips. Neha, I hope that those 3 CELPIP writing tips helped answer your question. Claudiana says, would I not be qualified for migration if I get a score of 7? If you get a CLB 7, you actually qualify to open your Express Entry profile. Now, what's happening is that with the trends of Express, with the new immigration trends, is that a CLB 7 will give you the opportunity to create your profile in Express Entry. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your profile is competitive in the pool, because there are so many candidates from all around the world who have, say, a CLB 8 or CLB 9, which automatically gives you like 50 to 60 more points. Now, if you go to my Instagram page, I talk all about the CLB 9. And on the reason why the CLB 9 is such a coveted band score is because it gives you up to 60 more points for your pool, your profile in the pool, sorry. So the CLB 7 doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It just means that your profile might not get called. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of draws. Like February 14th, we had some updates in the immigration processes, right? But we don't really know what draws are going to happen. The Canadian Experience class had some draws this year, like 5 months ago, but there's a big backlog of applicants, right? Now, for that information, I do have a fantastic friend who's an immigration consultant. Her name is Olena Weber. She's fantastic, and she has all sorts of great tips on her page. If you follow me on Instagram, you can see her there. I'm not affiliated with her or anything, so I just want to give you tips. Check her out. She posts tons of great tips on immigration, but you can definitely see the trends in immigration. Amir says, is the CELPIP test similar to the PTE? The PTE is a test by Cambridge University, which I have also taught. The PTE, the CAE, the FCE, the CPE, I've taught them all. They're not very similar. No, there are lots of differences. Remember, the Cambridge University tests like the PTE, which is like the KET, the PTE, the FCE, the CAE, and the CPE. Those tests are from Cambridge University. Those tests are certificates that you get that do not expire. They have a totally different purpose. Those tests stay on your resume, for example, to prove your proficiency level. And the formats are totally different. So no, they're not very similar. And another thing, those use British English or international English versus the CELPIP test is used exclusively for immigration purposes. And the topics are very much about real life English, real life context. It's not academic. It's a little bit easier, I would say, the CELPIP, because you're not going to have to answer questions about academic journals or anything academic. And the topics, the vocabulary you're going to see on the CELPIP is a little bit more real life, except for the reading test towards the end. It does get a little bit trickier. And again, the CELPIP is Canadian. It's all Canadian English. Nikena, oh, hi, Nikena. Yes, the listening is the challenge on the CELPIP test. You have to listen to lots of Canadian English, and taking notes on the CELPIP test is important. Note taking from the top to the bottom is really important. Honestly, the CELPIP listening test, one of the challenges is that you are not given the opportunity to read the question before you listen. And that's really hard, right? Because you normally want to read the question before you listen, right? You want to know what you're going to listen for. But on the CELPIP, it's the other way around. You have to listen first and then you read the question. So on the CELPIP test, you want to make sure you've got your pen and your paper and you're taking notes from the top to the bottom, okay? Taking lots of notes. Let's see. Thank you so much for your help and support. Oh, thank you, Neha. I'm really happy to hear that you enjoyed this session. I'm here to help. I'm honestly, I just want to help. I'm one of those teachers that, like, I love teaching. I just want to help. I'm here to support you. And thank you. Claudiana says, thank you for the vacation. How about PNP? Okay, PNP. Ironically, I was just doing some research on the PNP. I'm not an immigration consultant, guys, but I know a lot. Now, the PNP programs depend on the various provinces. Like there's the OIMP, the Ontario in the immigration one, the British Columbia one. The British Columbia one, for example, just to give you an idea of how nuanced this is, if you are in the NOC, if you are in one of the NOCs, you need a CELPIP 4 or CELPIP 5. But if you are in another NOC, then you don't need the ielts or the CELPIP. So it really depends on the PNP program that you are in and the NOC that you are in. So summing up, some provincial programs do not need a CELPIP or an IELTS, but some might. It depends on the program that you are in and the job that you have. That you have to speak to an immigration consultant, because it's going to depend on the NOC, which is your national occupation code, like the occupation that you have, and the province that you are in. So if you're in British Columbia or Ontario, the rules are different. So for the provincial nominee program, the CLB will change if you need the test at all. So speak to an immigration consultant about the PNP. Ontario, okay, yeah. Speak to Olena or check her Instagram page. She posts tons of tips about that. If you go to my Instagram page, you can quickly find hers. She posts tons of tips on the OIMP, the Ontario program. I don't think you need to have IELTS or CELPIP for the OIMP. The last I saw for the Ontario, you don't need it, but it depends on the program or your job. So I don't want to say anything for sure because I'm not an immigration consultant. So like, I feel scared about saying anything for sure. That's the information I have seen on Instagram and what I've spoken to with my colleagues. But please, I encourage you to consult an immigration consultant, because I'm not a registered immigration consultant. I'm not. I'm a certified CELPIP professional and IELTS specialist, but not an immigration consultant. So that's something that I shouldn't be actually advising on, okay? Okay, does anybody have any last minute CELPIP questions before I lose my voice? I'd like to thank everybody for registering today. And again, for those of you who are here, if you need help preparing for your CELPIP test, trust me that the CELPIP speaking and writing solution is a quick and easy course for you to take to get the band scores you need on your speaking and writing test. I'm here to help you. I created this course because I saw that there was a demand for something like this out there. Everything else I saw online didn't have great answers. They were all test taker answers. I'm like, how are people going to prepare for their test reading responses from real test takers? It didn't make sense to me. So I created this course so that you could find out exactly what goes on in the mind of an examiner. I'm on your side. So please let me know if you've got any questions. Thank you, Charisse, for joining me today. I'm very grateful for your time, because time is invaluable. We are all equals on this planet because we all are given the same amount of time. McKenna, that's actually a good question. Why don't you have a course for just listening and reading together? You know what? That's great feedback. I haven't had time to make a course just for listening and reading, to be honest. Building a course takes a lot of time. I spent about a year just building this last one. So I could make one just for the listening and reading. I can see if I can do that very quickly. I can see if I can put that together quickly, actually. I'll do my best to make that a short one for you, a quick module for you then. I'll do my best. But if you need to prepare for your CELPIP listening and reading, I do encourage that you go to the CELPIP website. They have some pre-practice tests. That way you don't have to spend any money on their tests. They have 2 free practice tests on their website. Okay, you can take 2 free tests. And for the listening and the reading, honestly, the listening, it's a lot about taking notes. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I do have some tips on how to take notes. So if you go to English for Canada on YouTube, I have some free videos on note taking for the listening test, okay? Or go to our Instagram page, I talk about that. Charisse, where can we take the practice test? If you go to, let me just see if I can, just give me a moment. I'm gonna add a link for you guys there. Hold on. If you'd like to take a free practice test for the CELPIP, here, these are the free tests that they offer. There, those are the free tests that they offer. They only have offered 2 free tests, okay? For the listening and the reading. Again, I want to be clear though, that the speaking and the writing tests that they offer on their website, the sample responses, they are test taker responses, meaning that they are people who have taken the test. So they're not up to the examiner's expectations, and they have lots of English mistakes in them. So please, if you're going to be studying off of their website, I encourage you not to use their speaking and writing responses, just because it can help. You might pick up some bad mistakes, honestly. If you're going to be learning English, like, you want to study off of something that doesn't have mistakes, right? So that's why I created my course, because I wanted something that would show you high-level responses that are according to what a CELPIP examiner would expect. Now, for the listening and reading, definitely, I always encourage lots of practice. So take those free listening and reading tests there, but also listening is also a skill that can be practiced outside of just taking the test, right? Listen to podcasts, watch movies, talk to your friends, do as much listening as you can in everyday life to really help you improve your listening skills. That's going to help you in general, not just for the CELPIP test, okay? And as a result, your listening will improve for the CELPIP test. Okay, and McKenna, I love that feedback. I'm going to actually make a listening and reading course now that I know that there's demand for that. See, this is what I need feedback, because I had feedback from students when I made the premium course. I made the one for the 4 skills. I had students say, why don't you make one just for the speaking and the writing? Because I don't want the listening and the reading. So I said, okay, I'll make one just for the speaking and the writing. And now I have one just for the listening and the reading. So it's always good to get feedback. I'm always open to helping create new content for you guys. I just want to help here. I want you guys to get the scores you need without having to spend thousands of dollars and without having to spend hundreds of hours, because we don't have time for that, do we? We want results, and we want them now. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed this webinar. I'm going to wrap it up because I think that everybody has asked all the questions that they need. And if you have any questions about my course, I'm going to add my website here as well, englishforcanada.com. We are IELTS and CELPIP professionals. We do offer general English classes as well. So if any of you need to improve like your general English, like you just want to speak with somebody in English with a Canadian teacher, we also offer general English classes. So a lot of people don't know that. They think that we're just IELTS and CELPIP geeks, but we do offer general English classes too, like pronunciation classes or business English classes, or if you just want to talk to somebody in English. Some of our students say we're like therapists in English. But if you just want to talk to somebody in English, a conversation class, we also offer general English classes, and they're very, very reasonably priced so that you don't have to like break the bank. You know what I mean? Because we understand, like with the pandemic and everything, we're doing our absolute best to adjust to the new situation. So please let us know. If you have any questions, you can email us. We've got our team assistant who responds Monday to Friday. And it's been a pleasure helping you. Follow us on Instagram. I make videos and whatnot over there. And thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful for having had your time. I hope to see you in my premium CELPIP prep course or in the CELPIP speaking and writing solution course. Either one is an amazing option for you to prepare for your CELPIP test, okay? I'll see you in the next webinar. By the way, stay tuned because I will be having another one soon on the IELTS versus the CELPIP. You'll get an email about it soon, okay? Have a great evening, everybody. Take care wherever you are. Thank you for joining me. Have a great evening. Thank you. Bye.